Let's learn some Torah. The power of Parshat Korach is actually about power. If you look at the dynamic that springs up within the Israelites, not only in this week's Parsha, where people are contesting power and authority, they don't like often, nor do we, when someone else is in charge. It's a very uncomfortable feeling to have less control over my own destiny, over my own life. We see this come to a head over and over in the book of Bamidbar, this book of Numbers that we are in, where there are 7 rebellions that all threaten to topple the structure of the Israelite community, either as attacks on God's choice of who will be in charge, as we have this week, or attacks on who has the singular privilege of God's intimate attention, which is a rebellion that we saw a few weeks ago between Miriam and Aaron and their brother Moses. It could be a rebellion from outside trying to attack the integrity of the people. But over and over, it is basically about power. In this week's Parsha, Korach, who is a cousin to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, he's a member of the tribe of Levi, has a tremendously important position because everyone in Levi actually has a privileged position, especially during the time of the Torah. He's not satisfied. He'll never be satisfied, to quote a well-known movie song. And here he is rallying as many thought leaders and political leaders as he can to his side. And the language they use is about communal welfare and holiness, but ultimately it's about him wanting more power. That's very clear. Now here's something very interesting that happens. When he publicly confronts Moses and Aaron, who have tried to make peace with those who Korach has seduced to his side, when he contests them all, and he gathers all of his fellow rebels. There are a lot of things to say about this group, but let's just call them rebels. He calls out Moses and Aaron, and what does Moses do? Moses falls to his face. And when you read that text, all these horrible things are said to Moses. And if you're watching a movie, or if you're watching some hyper-masculine, toxic masculinity kind of dynamic, say, well, fight back, fight back. And in fact, Moses does something that's really interesting. He falls to his face. And if you've raised adolescents, one of the interesting techniques that I've heard suggested for parents of adolescents is that they push so hard. The definition of adolescence is defining yourself against someone else, against the authority figure of your parent or parents or school. But what if there's nothing to push against? Then you realize, oh, it's just me standing here. What will I do with this wild life of mine? It's a way out of adolescence. And instead of butting horns, as so many parents and children do, giving them the space to self-define, because they're actually not fighting against anyone. They're just trying to have a little bit of control over their own lives, as we all desire. Moses, by falling to his face, creates a physical vacuum in space, and suddenly Korach is pushing, but there's no one there, as opposed to punching back. Moses models a different kind of leadership, which is, who are you yelling at? What literally is your problem? If what you're looking for is a sense of more control, assert it over yourself. Ezehu Gibor, says Pirkei Avot, who is mighty? Hakovesh et Yitzro, someone who conquers their own ego, their own internal inclination. Korach's need for power would never be answered by having more power. We have seen this in our lifetimes, in the political world. Sometimes people are so hungry for power, it doesn't make a difference when they get it. They still want it, which means they actually don't have a sense of control over their own life at all. There's something missing or underdeveloped within them. Now, I don't deny the image of God that they are created in, but I do wonder about their ability to see themselves more fully, to self-actualize, to be self-aware. Korach, no matter how much power he would ever accrue, it would never be enough. Moses somehow knows that and falls to his face, because you can't out-logic a sense of personal inadequacy. You can just grow. So Moses sort of gives him room to grow. So here's what I want to say, not because this text is ever going to be satisfied by the way human beings connect and contest for power. But I do want to ask us to be on this path of growth. What would it be like in your life? Instead of defining yourself by someone else's abilities or pushing against their control because what you really want is a sense of your own safety, what if we took a second right now? Let's do it. And breathe. And say to ourselves, there are only so many things I can control in this world. One of them is my response to this world. I'm going to begin this day with enormous gratitude for everything that I am, everything I've been given, for as long as it will be mine. I want to offer this intention in honor of two spectacular leaders who UJA honored last night. I was so overwhelmed with gratitude to be in the presence of Dan and Elisa Doktorov. For those who know who they are, they're just extraordinary people who give with enormous skill and care so that the world will be a more tender, healthy place. I watched them and their children stand modestly as they were being honored, uncomfortable actually, with the central role that they'd been handed as honorees at a very public event, and the way that they articulated their vision for the world. The music, the sacred music that they brought into that space. The New York landscape that Dan Doktorov has helped resurrect after 9/11 for the benefit of untold thousands and thousands of people. Artistic space, social space, healing space. I would invite you, friends, first of all, to look up who they are, Elisa and Dan Doktorov, but also to know that they are simply, and they would probably have me say this, two examples of what it is to be a mensch, to be a kind, gentle person who lives life at their full size, shows up with all the capacity that you have, and doesn't fight against those for whom there is no satisfying. Korach is a model that is the opposite of this ideal. Korach, as we see him, as we experience him, can't experience gratitude, can't live life fully, never feels well met, never feels heard, is always pushing against. We call that adolescence. It's a phase of growth. But if we are blessed to truly become adults, to be mensches in the world, we could actually look to Moses for the model here. He knows that there is no answering these terrible accusations, so he diffuses the moment by getting out of the way. He doesn't cede control, he exercises it. What a gift life will be when we each are able to do just a little bit more of that, to learn from the models of beautiful people like Elisa and Dan, and yes, Moshe Rabbeinu. So may we be blessed, friends. May we be truly blessed that when we feel unsettled in the world, we don't look outside of ourselves for the answers. We pause, breathe deep, exercise some gratitude, and know that yes, actually, what I have is enough, and I can help someone else too. That's a gift. That's a gift. Let's sing our way into a good day, friends. Thanks for sharing Torah today. Bless you, friends. See you tomorrow.